Whoa, that's pretty tight.
For those who watch.
For those who watch.
The silence of the Paradise Island is shattered by a horrific scream. Two men strapped to gaming tables lose consciousness after having their tongues cut out. The host, a sweet blonde in a red dress, approaches one of the participants and announces the start of a new round. The wounded man can't respond, but his words don't matter anymore. The relatives of the players are brought into the arena, and the host declares that this round will be played for their lives. When the players make their choices and press the buttons, the blonde announces the result. The relatives will be executed. A few weeks earlier, a comfortable bus is driving a group of tourists to a villa. Jude, one of the friends, has won an online game and secured a trip to a paradise island for 6 people. The lucky ones Jude invited are his childhood best friend Andy, along with his wife and father, and his new girlfriend Heather, as well as his younger brother Henry. Andy and Kate are a couple on the brink of divorce. After Andy had an affair, his wife barely restrains herself from causing a scene, and even the anticipation of the vacation doesn't smooth out the rough edges of their strained relationship. The travelers check into the villa and receive an invitation from the hotel administration, but Heather is interested in something else. The blonde is waiting for her boyfriend to finally get rich and starts showering her with expensive gifts. Kate and Andy continue to argue, but Kate refuses to take sedatives, wanting to handle the stress on her own. She asks her husband for help so that she can trust him again like before. In the morning, the women go to the pool, and Heather tries to discuss the argument they overheard the night before with her friend. The guys also find a reason to talk, and Andy thanks his friend for inviting them on this amazing vacation. However, Andy is surprised that Jude brought Henry along, but Jude doesn't hide the fact that his brother bailed him out with money to cover another gambling debt. Leaving the women to enjoy the sun, the guys head off to meet with the villa administration. The guests are greeted and invited to a table, where a representative of the company joins them. She thanks Jude for participating in the game and offers to raise the stakes, go through a few more rounds, and win $20 million. The blonde clarifies that this time the game will take place offline, but there won't be anything complicated about it. Moreover, the participants will have a trial round where they can understand the rules and decide whether to proceed. Unlike his friend, Andy doesn't want to agree to participate. He's convinced that the offer is too generous to be true and that there's some sort of catch, especially since the blonde states the main rule. The players will be strapped to the table, and they won't have the option to back out. Despite his friend's arguments, Jude hears only one thing: $20 million. His judgment is clouded by the anticipation of wealth, and he persuades his friend to agree. Finally, Andy agrees to try and go through the trial round, but the next day he starts having doubts again. The hotel staff are behaving strangely, taking a glass from Jude's hand. Despite this, the guys arrive at the designated place, and the host announces the start of the trial round. The prize for the first round is $10,000, and the rules turn out to be too simple. In front of the players are 2 buttons, red and blue. If both press the red button, the money is split equally. If both press the blue buttons, no one wins the prize, and both participants must return this amount to the company. However, if one presses the red button and the other the blue, one player will get everything, while the other will owe the company. It seems there are no problems. Just press the red buttons and take the winnings. But a quarrel breaks out between the men. Andy suspects his friend of deceit and is sure that he will press the blue button to take the entire prize. The time allotted for discussion is spent arguing, but in the end, the guys come to their senses, apologize to each other, and press the red buttons. The host announces that the winnings have been credited to their accounts and offers to continue playing. Andy refuses to participate again, realizing that it will only get worse. But Jude behaves like a fool. He persuades his friend to have some fun and not take the game too seriously. It seems as if Jude senses that everything will end badly, but he gives in to his friend's persuasion, and the players return to the table. The participants' left hands are cuffed to the table, and the host informs them that there is no turning back from this point on. She announces the start of the new round, but this time there are new details. Instead of just winning money, the consequences become physical. If both press the red button, $50,000 will be credited to their accounts, but both players will lose a finger. If only one presses the red button, they will owe $100,000 and lose a finger, while their opponent will remain unharmed. Finally, if both players press the blue buttons, they will both owe $100,000 and lose not just a finger, but their entire hand. Jude continues to laugh, which greatly annoys Andy, who has realized they've gotten themselves into a mess. But Jude reassures his friend that there's no need to panic. It's just a silly joke by the host. The guys agree to press the red buttons, but Jude deceives his friend. He presses the blue button despite his promises. The traitor gets the entire sum, but a horrifying event unfolds before his eyes. Andy loses a finger on his shackled hand. It becomes clear that the blonde was serious. Jude's smile fades and the men demand to be released. The host calmly reminds them of the rules and warns the players that attempts to stop the game will be punished. Anyone who refuses to choose a button will be eliminated. The second round is no different from the previous one, except this time the prize is $500,000. The girl offers the players a chance to confer and delivers the show's signature line for those who are watching. A quarrel breaks out between the men again. Andy accuses his friend of pressing the blue button for the money. He realizes that Jude had always been friends with him out of convenience, but the traitor denies the accusations and reveals a secret to Andy. He knew about Andy's mother's illness for 6 months and had been helping her with treatment so that none of their loved ones would have to worry. The touching moment is interrupted by the host's voice, who asks the players to make a choice. She watches the proceedings with interest, as do the viewers who are watching the broadcast from somewhere safe. This time, both buttons turn out to be red, and it's declared a draw. The money hits the players' accounts as quickly as their fingers are taken off. Andy, having already experienced the pain, quietly examines his wound, but Jude begins to scream like a frightened child. After regaining his composure, Jude tries to understand why the host is doing this, but the blonde assures him that she is only interested in her paycheck. The show has many fans, and she can't let them down. It's time for the third round, and the stakes are raised. This time, instead of fingers, the lives of the players' loved ones are on the line. Andy's father and Henry are brought to the table, and they will serve as the stakes. Now, 2 red buttons will bring the players money, but will cost their relatives their eyes. If both buttons are blue, the players will become debtors, and the old man and Jude's brother will be eliminated. If the players make different choices, the blue player will get all the money, and their relative will leave unharmed. Meanwhile, the red player will owe $1 million, and their relative will lose their life. The men realize they've been given a choice without a real choice. Someone will suffer no matter what. A dispute breaks out between the players, and Jude asks his friend to press the red button. His father has lived a long life, and they need to give Henry a chance. Jude fails to reach an agreement with Andy, and both men try to save their relatives. But instead, it only makes things worse. Both press the blue button, and the guests are executed, saddling the players with a massive debt. Jude accuses his friend of being responsible for Henry's death, forgetting that he himself had dragged them into this game. But none of that matters anymore. The host gives the guys a short break and announces the start of the next round. It turns out to be more terrifying than the previous one. Kate and Heather are brought out to the players, who will be the new stakes in this hellish game. The rules remain the same. If both press the red buttons, $5 million will be credited to their accounts, but the women will lose their tongues. If both buttons are blue, the women will be eliminated. If the players choose different buttons, the winner takes the money and his beloved leaves unharmed. The beloved of the red player goes nowhere, and the player ends up with a huge debt. The women are given a chance to say their last words, and Kate confesses her love to her husband. She promises to put his affair behind them and says they will be happy again, even if she loses her tongue. Heather also uses her chance. She tells Jude about her pregnancy, but this doesn't affect the hosts and the game continues. The players are given more time to discuss, and Jude assures his friend that he will press the red button. If they do this together, the women's lives will be spared, despite the severe injuries they will suffer. Jude deceives his friend and presses the blue button. He gets the money, and Heather is led away at the moment when Kate is eliminated before her husband's eyes. A camera hidden in the hand of an ancient statue carefully observes everything, and the host cheerfully announces that the game is coming to an end. Andy is not afraid of what's to come, as there are no longer any loved ones left in his life. But the blonde disagrees. She reminds him that Jude was also his best friend. In the next round, just like in the previous ones, 2 red buttons bring both players a win, but in this case, they both lose an eye. Different buttons leave the winner intact and with the money, while the red player loses both eyes and becomes a debtor. 2 blue buttons will stop the game. The participants will be eliminated and their suffering will end. Andy refuses to discuss options and says that he will press the blue button. He wants to end this quickly and has no intention of saving his friend anymore. Jude's pleas fall on deaf ears, and the time they were given to confer runs out. But despite his decision, Andy lacks the courage to sign his friend's death warrant. The red buttons light up, and the host rejoices at how cleverly Andy outplayed everyone. The men receive their money, and the hotel staff do their job, taking 1 eye from each player. The players are in unbearable pain, but the host ignores it. She reminds them that all of this is done for those who are watching and announces the start of the final round, which will determine the winner. Before starting, the blonde veers off topic and asks the guys to talk about their love for money after everything they've been through. But unfortunately, neither participant wants to engage with the host. What happens next shocks the participants. Heather, who had already participated in the game and managed to escape, is brought back to the table. Jude demands that his pregnant girlfriend be released, as this violates all the rules. But the player's word does not stop the host. She declares that the girl will not just be a stake. This time, Heather will have a chance to press the button. Hearing this, Andy realizes he has no chance. The lovers will save each other, but he decides to listen to the host and find out what the final round is about. In the final round, Andy and Jude become a team, but only Andy has the right to press the button. If he presses the red button and Heather shows a red card, everyone will stay alive and share $20 million. However, all three participants will lose an eye. If the colors don't match, the blue players will take the money and stay alive, while the red players will sign their death warrants. If all choose blue, then all three will be eliminated and the money will stay in the hands of the show's organizers. Jude asks his girlfriend to trust him and raise the red card. He assures her that this is their only chance to stay alive, and they will somehow deal with the injuries that threaten them in case of a win. It seems that the girl understands everything, but Andy doesn't believe in her sincerity. He laughs at his friend, who hadn't noticed all along how Heather had been taking his money and simply using him. The blonde starts crying and begs Andy to press the red button, just as she will. She reminds him of her pregnancy and asks him to give her and Jude a chance to raise their child together. The pleas of the lovers influence Andy, and he presses the red button. But Heather forgets her promise. She wipes away her tears and shows the blue card. Andy laughs at how cleverly the girl played them, and only Jude can't understand what's happening. Finally, it dawns on him that there is no pregnancy, and the blonde has deceived everyone to save herself. The host thanks the players for a wonderful game, and the staff eliminate them in front of those who are watching. The game shifts back to the participants where it all began. They once again face a difficult choice, but this time it's under the guidance of a new blonde in red, Heather. The girl asks the players not to let her down. Their game determines her paycheck, so the man should return to the table and entertain the powerful patrons.